Good evening, everyone. Thank you for attending the April 29th, 2025 Lower Makefield Township Planning Commission meeting. This is Colin Coyle, Chair of the Planning Commission, joining remotely. I apologize, I may freeze on the video. I'm dialing in by phone to make sure that I'm able to join in the discussions. If there's any problems with my ability to run the meeting, Mr. Bush or Mr. Costello in the room will take over on my behalf. But all that said, let me begin the meeting by calling the roll. I see Mr. Bush in attendance, Mr. Costello in attendance, Ginny Torbert in attendance, as well as our town planners. We have RBE represented tonight, Maureen, our solicitor, and Mr. Grenier, the chair of the Board of Supervisors. Did I miss anyone in the roll call?
I think you got everyone, Colin.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much. The first item on the agenda should be the approval of the minutes from the March 10th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes from the March 10th meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tony. And Ginny is a second. Thank you very much. Is there any comment on the notes from the commission? Okay. Any public comment on the minutes from the March 10th meeting? Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the March 10th meeting, please indicate by saying aye.
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 The vote is unanimous for the approval of the minutes. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the WRIGHT Farm subdivision. That's item number 3. The folks from the WRIGHT Farm subdivision are in front of us today. Jim, do you want to take over from here and introduce the agenda item?
We have before you the WRIGHT Farm subdivision. You may recall this was last in front of the Planning Commission, I believe in
February 10th.
February 10th, thank you. The plans have been revised, new review letters have been issued, and the applicant is here just to briefly touch on some of the things they've done since that meeting to address comments made by the public.
Correct. I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the DeLuca organization to pick up the conversation where it left off 2.5 months ago when we were last here. To my immediate left is Joseph DeLuca Jr., and to Joe's left is Justin Giannotti. Justin is the project engineer, and both Joe and Justin were with me on February 10th when we last made our most recent presentation to the Planning Commission. As Jim Majewski said, we've spent the intervening time addressing comments and concerns that were raised during the course of that public discussion. And to Jim's point, we did update the plans, incorporated some of the design changes that we had been asked to consider, and I'm going to have Justin review those changes with everyone shortly. We also, even though we covered all the waivers, we've updated the waiver letter, and we've tried to simplify the review letter of the township engineer to only highlight those remaining issues to the extent there are any that require additional public comment, and Justin will cover those as well when he provides the update to everyone. Finally, we took a stab at doing, and we'll show it to you last, a sketch that might address some neighbor concerns and alleviate some of the concern about the fear of cut-through traffic from Surrey Lane. And at the end of the update, we'll show you a sketch that we've identified to see what anybody thinks about it and to determine if it makes sense to pursue some additional level of PennDOT consideration for that sketch. So I think with the above as background, we'll have Justin sort of run through the plan that we had in February and how we've updated the plan since.
Good evening, everyone. Jim, if you could start with the first rendering of the site plan that was submitted with the recent application. So at the end of the last meeting, we took a look at the plan, and there was a overwhelming, I think, majority of board members and public was concerned about the intention and the use of the required open space. Now, if you guys remember, this project requires 25% of the lot area to be dedicated open space. The placement of the open space was in a good location. It was wrapping around the perimeter of the bypass and also on the adjoining properties, which were existing farmland to remain. I think we had the location of the open space correct. It was just the intention of, there was a little bit of a conflict in the ordinance of, for farmland preservation, there was no trees. So if you wanted to use it as farmland, we couldn't put any perimeter trees, landscaping, buffers, because farmers don't like shade. It affects the crops. So if it was going to be used as farmland, we couldn't put the trees. And I think the majority after the meeting, at least we were told, was we want trees and we don't want as much farmland. We want to try to maximize the buffer and that view shed from the bypass. So this plan does exactly that. You'll see that the open space area is now dedicated open space. It is not preserved to be, at least I'll get up and speak here. The farmland area right here, it joins the
Turn around so people, black people.
we talking that one? Oh,
They can't see what you're pointing.
I can't talk on both, but well, I'll show you on both screens. So this open space, which adjoins the preserved farm, is going to remain the only farmland area on the property. The balance of the open space area, which wraps the bypass and goes along Interstate 95, is going to be open space, and you'll see here, and I'll point to on the other screen in a second. We have street trees lining the entire perimeter, and then also along the back of the lots to actually buffer the houses from the bypass. So one of the biggest changes on the plan there, and just pointing to it on this plan here, same thing. This is going to be the farmland preservation area, obviously adjoining the preserved farm to maintain access there. This piece that adjoins the bypass and also 95, that's going to be dedicated open space, not farmed. And then you'll see the landscape buffering that we have proposed in this plan. Just in the rendered form, obviously our landscape plan shows a little more detail. We are still maintaining Patterson Lane. The existing Patterson Lane is going to be obviously not a township road anymore. It is going to be absorbed into the property as basically an emergency access only, and also a access for the farmland preservation, the farmers' use for them to access from this preserved farm to the farm that's to the north of our property too. There was a desire to keep that open to maintain access along there. So that piece is going to be remained. It's going to be chained and bollard to be emergency access only, and then obviously used for farmer access. As far as everything else, the majority of the plan revisions were meant to address township engineering comments from both your, I'll go through the township engineer, township traffic engineer, planner, fire marshal, police officers. So we went through and addressed all those comments. You don't see a lot of them on the rendering here, but they have been addressed as part of our latest resubmission. And we can walk through, I think, the letter point by point, but we did go through and pretty much boil down all the review letters to what we'll call as outstanding items. If everyone's familiar with how Remington Vernick does their review letters, they never take comments out of their review letter, and I think that's important. So you're never going to see a shorter letter, and I think there was a comment at the last meeting, come back with a shorter letter. Well, that's not going to happen. But, a lot of about 80% of the comments said item addressed or item satisfied, but it still remains in the letter. There are some administrative comments that typically take place at the record plan stage and kind of post all the board approvals, which are still in the letter. But it did come down to a couple, I'll call it conversational items that I think may be necessary to have at the Planning Commission just to make sure we're all on the same page. But the latest resubmission was really just that, was really just addressing, cleaning up some of the comments from the engineers, and hopefully addressing some of the concerns that this board has. And we heard through Mr. Grenier from a liaison from the Board of Supervisors and also the public.
Let's talk about a couple of those items that we did talk about last time, and that is, one, there was a question about the health and quality of the trees that surrounded the Wright homestead in the middle of the site. Explain to the board and the audience what we've done to address that question first, and then we'll deal with a couple others after that.
Sure. So after the meeting, we did schedule an on-site meeting with an arborist, licensed arborist. They did walk the property. They did analyze all the trees on the farmstead, around the farmstead, and on our plan as trees that would be, to be removed as part of this project. Now, all of the trees, and we have a report here from T&T Tree Service from Richard Mary, who's a licensed arborist. He did go through point by point of all the trees and did list them all as, just to summarize, none of the trees are in good condition. A lot of them are just, trees that have just grown over time around the farmstead, either dead, diseased, dying, severely decayed, structural stability and overall health declined. So we did have that report, and it should be in your packet. We did submit that, so you guys can review that as well. But there was a concern that those trees should be preserved. It's our professional opinion that those trees are not in good health, and there would be no adverse effects to removing them and replacing them with the substantial amount of trees which are being proposed as part of this project.
I don't want to get too much into the weeds about Patterson Lane, but we should, I think, for the benefit of the audience and the Planning Commission, have you explain how the current width of Patterson Lane, which is today a township road, how it's going to be absorbed once the right-of-way is going to be vacated, and explain what's left.
Sure. So Patterson Lane is a township road, even though it only serves 2 properties at this time. So as part of our project, and you'll see the proposal was to basically remove Patterson Lane, and it's evolved through the process, but we were originally going to remove it entirely, but then now we're going to keep it in place to be used as emergency access, as a second point of access to the community. And also for the farmers to use to access the adjoining farms. So the right-of-way itself, from it being a township road, is then going to be basically eradicated and absorbed back into the project. So the lot area is actually going to be absorbed into the project area. So that means that the Patterson Road is going to be maintained by the community and obviously used as emergency access and farmland preservation. So it is no longer going to be a township road, and access is going to be taken through the community.
Previously, when, in February, when there was discussion about whether or not the open space that abuts the bypass and 295 was going to be either farmland or open space, there was a question raised then, and again now, about the ability or desirability of having a bicycle path. Explain what the plans contemplate now.
And I think it was actually discussed at the last planning commission too, and I think the board members of the commission agreed, there really is no benefit to a bike path along the frontage of this property. Obviously, you're bound by 95 on the on-ramps, and then having a bicyclist pass along the bypass along the frontage of our property and then stopping serves no regional benefit, also serves as much as a safety issue as well. So there is going to be no bike path. I think that was the decision, actually a consensus at the last planning commission meeting, and the funds for that path would be allocated elsewhere. There's going to be,
Justin,
sorry.
If I may I ask, were you going to describe a passive recreation use for that space?
Correct. So yeah, the open space is going to be for passive recreation. You'll see along the community, we do have sidewalks on both sides of the community entirely around it that provide pedestrian access to and from. But there's, from a safety and PennDOT and perspective, there is no ability to install a bike path along just our limited frontage, especially with the Interstate 95 and the adjacencies.
Justin, I'm looking at the plan. I don't see an area that's clearly delineated for pedestrian access. I see what looks like sewer easements, or drainage easements between lots 14 and 13, as well as lots 9 and 10, and 7 and 6. Is it your intent that those easements would also be for pedestrians to access the recreation space?
We can resolve that on the plan and give access through the lots for them to use the space. It may not be shown on the plan. We're showing obviously the use of the sidewalks around the community, but if it's the commission's desire to have access to that passive open space, that can be accommodated with the plan.
I think at this point, it's not clear that there is a defined access. I don't want to run into problems with future neighbors, preventing people from going through quote unquote their yard to access the open space, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
The next issue that,
Ed, if I could ask a quick question on the open space? Who is there going to be an HOA established that would be responsible for the open space?
Yes, sir.
Okay. There, just as a heads up, there has been some discussion at the board level, instead of doing that, to make it potentially reforest it, to have more of a forested area versus the open spaces, as you're saying. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And there's different ways to do that, but it's for discussion at future meetings.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would just to add to that, if the intent is for it to remain passive recreation open space, if those are easements, if my understanding there is correct for drainage, it doesn't seem that a future HOA would have the ability to put any sort of a paved path into it. So I would just reconsider that as you move forward. Unpaved is fine, for the record.
Okay.
That's all I have for now. Thank you.
the next item is one that there's been, I'll use the term conflict, maybe that's too strong a term, about how we treat the first intersection on our site after it leaves existing Surrey Lane. So explain what the disagreement among the township consultants is and where it stands now, so we get some feedback or direction from the Planning Commission.
Sure, and that location is right here on Surrey Lane, where the community is going to connect to existing Surrey Lane. And on this screen here, it's obviously we're talking about this stretch right here. You'll see on the design right now, there's a median, which is in the center of the road, and that's designed to be a traffic calming measure. So the road width stays the same, it stays the 30-foot road width. There's a median in the middle, which actually makes the lanes narrow, slows down traffic, and serves as like a gateway between the two communities. And that was that evolved out of some early discussions with township staff and township engineers about how to accommodate a traffic calming and a separation between the two communities. Now, that's our proposed design, and then if you look at, I believe it's the fire marshal review, there's a requirement that the lane width be no less than 20 foot wide. So that means on both sides of that median, they would like to see at least a 20-foot wide paved surface, and that's just so that their vehicle, if there's ever an issue, can put down the outriggers and have a paved surface on both sides. Conflict there is it defeats the purpose of traffic calming. So if we make a median in the middle and put two 20-foot lanes, you're not achieving a traffic calming measure there. So there needs to be a discussion of do we keep it with the boulevard entrance with the center median and a traffic calming measure there, or is the desire to obviously provide for the fire marshal review to have the 20-foot wide on either side of the median?
And
You don't, all right, go ahead, Ed.
No, go ahead, Colin, I'll finish. I'll wait for
Sorry,
you.
I was just going to ask, you don't believe that expanding that median and creating this as more of a diamond would serve a traffic slowing by forcing drivers to slow down, to broaden out and come back in?
No, so I think if we were to make the lane width 20 foot on either side, obviously it's not going to have that traffic calming effect that is necessary by shrinking the lane width as you drive through. That's where similar to what happens on Stupeville Road when you drive down Stupeville Road and there's the center medians. It's a traffic calming measure to make drivers really pay attention to what they're doing and slow down.
And one thing, I did speak with our fire marshal about that, and since there are a number of other islands in our township sort of laid out this way with the island in the middle, I believe he said that 18 feet would be acceptable to him. So that would give an 18-foot travel lane that they can easily get a fire truck through, an island in the middle, and an 18-foot lane. And that will effectively provide that traffic calming effect that you would need.
Yeah,
They actually have this at the entrance, the Devonshire part of the Bridal Estates development.
Correct, yeah, and that's fine. That would still provide the same traffic calming effect at 18 feet.
If that's the preference or recommendation, we'll implement that, that's fine.
I, for one, think that would be a preference for me. I mean, we don't need to, doesn't have to be either or here, and this sounds like a good compromise. And I do think it's important to have traffic calming from the new part of Surrey Lane to the old part, just because when you see developments like this where there's an extension of a road, often there is excessive speed. So I think it's a good addition.
I agree too.
Okay, and that's what assuming that's the preference, that's what we'll implement. Which brings us, I think, to the last comment that I previewed a few minutes back about the lingering concern about cut-through traffic, the lack of PennDOT acknowledgement of an appropriate point of access on the bypass, and an idea that we sort of thought about and would at least talk about publicly tonight to see if it has any merit, obviously subject to whether or not PennDOT would even entertain it if that was an option that the township would like us to entertain. So Justin has prepared a relatively simple sketch that highlights where a potential point of right out could be located on the property frontage, and I'll ask him to explain that.
Sure, and I'll explain it on the plan, then I'll kind of back up with a history lesson. So what we're showing on this plan here is at the corner of Surrey Lane, this is only going to be for the right out movement. So there's no in movement here. There's only would be a right out onto the bypass west of the signal at the bypass and Stony Hill Road. Now, we can get into that and just to show the public here too. So same thing here. This was a right out movement. So it allows a right out movement from the community onto the bypass so west of the signal of Stony Hill and 332 to allow this traffic to then exit the community and travel west on the bypass. Now, just by way of a quick history lesson, if you remember, we tried a few things with PennDOT here. We originally tried for a right in, right out movement, which had to occur really at this point here, which is centered between the off-ramp of 95 and then where the turn lanes on the Stony Hill Road start. So we had a right in, right out movement shown right in the middle of the driveway. Obviously, that was not looked favorably upon with PennDOT. They also didn't like the possibility or the ability for traffic exiting the job to then go to the signalized intersection and make a U-turn. And then having to cross from here across 2 lanes was also frowned upon from PennDOT's perspective. We then also looked at adding a 4th leg to the intersection. So adding actually a new signalized entry point onto that intersection there. As everyone here is aware, there's a lot of money spent on doing all the improvements during the whole Wegmans and Prickett job. The addition of that leg to the signal would actually deteriorate the work that was done, so PennDOT didn't want it. And when they say the word deteriorate, it really just means that adding another phase to that signal to allow that movement to exit would slow traffic in the community. And while it may be better for our community, was worse for the region overall, so PennDOT did not want that to happen. So this was something that we came up with that after hearing some neighbor concerns about the amount of traffic, with even not getting into our traffic study, but just the amount of traffic that would go through the existing Surrey Lane and to exit the community out through Quarry Lane and then down through Lindenhurst. This was the ability to alleviate some of that as like a relief valve, so to speak, to allow some of the traffic that's heading west on the bypass to exit our community and get right to the bypass. So this was an option that we came up with. Now, I'll preface it with saying that we still would need to get this approved by PennDOT. We don't know if it would be approved by PennDOT. It is very close to the intersection, but it is something that we believe we would be able to push through.
And that's just after the signal.
It has to be after the signal. PennDOT does not want anything before the signal because that would force maybe U-turn traffic and erratic movements to get into a turn lane to head down Stony Hill Road. So this is the only option that we could come up with as a right out.
Justin, so first, thank you folks for kind of showing up with this today. I know that we've been over and over the last several meetings trying to find a way to help address resident concerns of the other side of Surrey Lane as a cut through. So I appreciate that you've come with something. Is this, I mean, if PennDOT doesn't approve this, are we out of options to get creative and create another point of egress from the neighborhood?
Yes.
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 And so just to be clear, would you be asking us today to approve this plan? Would you be asking us to approve the earlier plan? What are we doing here from a process standpoint today?
Both. We would ask that you make a recommendation on the pending plan that's in front of you tonight, and with the understanding that we would make, in concert with the township, a good faith effort to amend that plan to provide for this right-out movement on the bypass. But failing PennDOT approval of that concept plan, we would expect that you would recommend up or down the underlying plan that's in front of you tonight.
And Maureen, would we make that motion contingent?
Conditional.
I'm not sure I know what that means.
Yeah, I think the.
I want to leave here tonight with a recommendation, one way or the other, of the formal, officially submitted plan. We came here with an option that we don't know is permittable by PennDOT. We are willing to make that effort to try, in concert with you guys, to get that approved. But if that fails, I don't want to have to come back here and deal with the underlying plan that we're talking about, so.
Yeah, and I understand that. And I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm just trying to get to clarity on how, if we're in favor of this, right, what sort of a motion do we need to craft, right? Frankly, I've never had two plans come
Maureen
out of
can deal with
one
that.
commission meeting for approval at the same time, yeah.
It would be really, as Ed just stated, that the plan would be approved, not necessarily contingent upon, with the understanding that the applicant, in concert or with the cooperation of the township, would approach PennDOT and discuss this alternative egress from the development or from the community. Absent either response or approval by PennDOT, and I would say we set forth some type of time frame in which we should expect some kind of response from them, then the plan as presented, not with the new egress, but the plan as presented this evening would be recommended, if you're so inclined.
We would
Understood.
agree. We would agree that we would not appear before the Board of Supervisors until we got a response from PennDOT to the concept plan, if people felt that was an important step to take. So that would give us some incentive and the township to determine if this has any legs before we would take this recommendation and present it to
Yeah.
the Board of Supervisors.
Thank you, yeah.
I mean, I have a simple question.
Yeah.
Before we talk about PennDOT, I mean, don't we have people that work for our township?
I think that's where I
That
was
should be, I mean, why send it to PennDOT if we don't know if the township wants it?
Right,
All fine.
yeah.
Yeah.
If there's further vetting inside the building that needs to occur before we do that, we understand that. That's
Yeah.
fine.
So, yes, to Mr. Costello's point, as you know, we have our own traffic engineer that
Yeah.
vets things, and before it's to me, it's an odd process when you have come in with, I get it, I'm not actually a fan of this process, but, and I have to put it on an agenda at some point to go over, and I think the board may be confused, to be honest.
Happy to support whatever internal analysis needs to be done, and if you guys conclude that it's a fool's errand to try to do it, or it doesn't make sense, then we don't.
Are you kind of jumped into the exit-only approach real quick. I wasn't entirely sure from the depiction, because you were zoomed in a little bit. Is the access to Patterson Lane for the farmers, that going to be maintained in this? Okay, I just want to make
Yes.
sure that was clear.
That will be remained as an emergency access, and basically as it is today, just chained off. We don't propose to touch Patterson Lane at all, but it will not be used for access to the community.
So how would the farmer then get to the other side if Patterson Lane is chained off?
So we do have, and that's all been worked out.
You want to put the plan back up?
When we met with, before we came in last time, we did meet with the Farmland Preservation Committee, and we did work out how the chains and bollards and how that was going to work. So if you look at this, and it's a little different now with obviously this road, but up here, there's also, they needed to have an access through this little piece of land here, so you'll see that there's a curb cut that allows them to cut through up there. And then down here, if this road does occur, we'll have the same sort of cut through where the farmer could actually run a vehicle through here, through the open space, and then get to the Patterson Lane, and take Patterson Lane all the way up. The bollard itself is not to this point up here. So that's really to prevent people from using this to access our community. That Patterson Lane roadbed will be remaining open through that entire stretch, so.
Okay, so getting something I mentioned in passing earlier, if we decide that we want you to essentially reforest, sorry if you can't hear me, I'll put this closer to my mouth, to reforest the area we're calling open space, then that access for farmland along the, that area would essentially go away.
It would, but I think I'm comfortable we could work something out to allow them to still maintain the access. They don't need much to get from one point to the next, so we could probably arrange the forestation or something to allow them to get that to one point to the other. Like they're going to be going, from what we understand, they'll be farming over here. They can access the top farm through up here, through that top connection point.
How close are they to houses there, existing houses?
This exists today, and this is what they're doing today. There's actually a paved road which runs that they're going to keep open.
That's good to
So
know.
it's exactly, that little stretch is going to remain exactly as is. That's off our property, actually, that's not even on our property.
And Justin, I know you mentioned that you'd want to keep something from the farm over to Patterson Lane along 332. I don't think that's really needed from the way the farmer operates. They could go up through the upper one near Surrey Lane and get through there, or, once they get their machines there, that's why they want to have
Correct,
Patterson Lane.
and that's why we kept that open as well. That's not our property, but they wanted to maintain any connection from existing Surrey Lane to proposed Surrey Lane. They needed to have the ability for them to cross that road, because if you're out there now, there's actually a gravel road that runs across that stretch, and they access the farm from that point there.
Just business as usual in that area,
That
is
was
what you're describing.
before we changed this plan to be open space, they just wanted to make sure that they maintain that access point, which is not on our property, and it's going to be.
So who owns that property?
So this property right here is owned by the township. So this is a township right-of-way right here, and it was designed, if you look at this is actually designed as future right-of-way for the connection of Surrey Lane, so that's a township right-of-way piece. This piece right here is actually owned by Farmland Preservation.
Okay, and so the farm piece to the left, which would continue to be maintained as farm, if there was no Patterson Lane, how would that be accessed? How would farm equipment get there?
On the existing farm, over here?
Yeah, no,
That's
that's different property.
That's different property.
But the stretch right there, how would farm equipment get there or to the top other piece?
There's no border here, so I mean,
No,
obviously if they farm,
But that's not the same farmer, though.
Well, and Tony, that's why farmland really wanted to keep the Patterson Lane
Because otherwise they have no
configuration.
access. They can be shut out.
They have access, but it would be through a neighborhood which would not be
So they don't have-
palatable to the
They don't have
community.
access.
they will be bringing
They don't have real access because the neighborhood would be upset immediately if farmland equipment started coming down their street. So Patterson Farm,
Mr. Bush, I think the biggest point is they can use Patterson Lane. So they can
right,
bring.
no, that's what I'm saying.
vehicle
That's the
in-
reason to keep it.
Yes, so
But no,
we're not touching Patterson.
Okay, that's the reason, because I heard something about why do we need Patterson Lane, but I think we still do need it.
Yeah.
I think
Farmland needs it.
I think everyone's in agreement on that.
Everyone's in
Yeah.
agreement.
All right,
Yeah.
I misheard then.
Yeah.
Yeah, the alternative isn't very great.
No.
And could you go to that right out only? Because that's a big deal. If you could zoom in on that. I know that this is a sketch and it probably hasn't been designed in detail yet, but whenever I'm looking at these, when I'm doing designs, and I see a right out only or left out only or whatever, you always want to look to make sure that it's truly, really, truly only a right out only, so they can't make that weird little U-turn and make for a really even less safe situation, right? That happens a lot. So it's not just painting and striping, it's physical barriers. And then you have kids that like to ride their bikes and they see that as hey, let's see how fast we can get across that 120 feet of road or whatever it is. So to me, it looked, I'm not sure PennDOT's going to love this from a safety perspective. It looks like it's potentially an attractive nuisance at some point. And then I would like, I don't know if you've modeled this yet, but just I'm getting ahead of you a little bit from a resident's perspective to see, does that potentially create more cut-through traffic through Bridal Estates, because people aren't going to want to go all the way to Lindenhurst, and they want to cut down straight through here and go that way.
I mean, the simple answer is it is going to provide an opportunity for a cut-through.
Yeah.
It is. It's going to have a connection point from Surrey Lane to the bypass. So if someone is interested, I mean, obviously there's less of a, I'll put it, a need for that cut-through because you're west of Stony Hill Road. So this would only be people that were heading west along the bypass. So if someone is coming from that neighborhood and they're looking to get, bypass Lindenhurst and all, yes, that could be a cut-through. It would be open to that. It's a public road. They could use it as a cut-through. So yes.
And how wide would you?
The road's going to be 15-foot wide and a 25-foot right-of-way, which is exactly half the width of the internal road.
15 feet wide for the road?
15-foot wide for the right-out movement only.
So it's a single lane?
It's a single lane.
Okay.
That's all it is. And it's only meant to be a single lane. It's
Right.
meant to be a one-lane out. That's it. So just, and it's really meant to alleviate some of the concerns we heard of the neighbors that just said that they don't want people, trying to access the bypass, going through their community to get the quarry lane, to get the Lindenhurst, to
Yeah.
get back to the bypass.
I would be concerned that it might have the opposite effect.
Correct.
Okay.
Could be.
Okay, I'm just,
We recognize that, but we're trying to identify another solution that specifically has not been presented to PennDOT.
oh, Ed, could you get closer to your microphone? He's flipping the light at me, sorry.
This option was raised only because when we spoke with Justin's traffic group, this particular location, unlike the Patterson Lane, unlike the four-legged intersection, this particular location has not been presented to PennDOT for their commentary. I share some of the, what you just said, and I see Adrian nodding his head, all true, but I don't know if those at PennDOT would share that view, and some people may view it as some marginal benefit. I don't know.
Okay, so in terms of going to the board with this, I think that, I don't know, I've heard one-on-one from board members. I'm not sure how we're going to like it or not. I lean negative, to be honest. But before it goes to the board of supervisors, really need it to be rock solid that it's absolutely safe and absolutely will alleviate those cut-through concerns. I don't see it right now. Obviously, we don't have enough information because it hasn't been vetted by PennDOT or our own staff or our own.
Well, two things that. One, if your internal staff review concludes that it's not well-founded, we shouldn't even broach the subject with PennDOT, number one. Number two, if you give us some encouragement that it's worth exploring with PennDOT, then we will, but only if you guys think there's merit to doing it, so.
So I just want to commend you for coming in with this plan. I think you heard the residents at the last meeting, and there were quite a few that spoke about of the existing neighborhood, how it was going to increase traffic for them, and this is a way of alleviating a portion of that traffic. There may be some people that view it as a cut-through that aren't in either the existing neighborhood or the new neighborhood, but probably not too many, the way this is set up. And I hear what Dan's saying about safety, and obviously safety is a high priority for everybody. But if it's designed properly and there are barriers, and the barrier isn't just at the turn, but goes down for a little bit of distance, you can make this pretty damn safe. And if it addresses the neighborhood's concerns, I think it's a great idea. Obviously, it depends on the devil's always in the details, and can it be done, and is it safe? But if it can work, I'm all in favor of it. I think it handles, it addresses what you heard. Not a lot of developers come in and say, I hear the neighborhood, I'm going to react and try and do something to address those concerns. You're doing that tonight, which is a good thing. So, I mean, whether or not everybody else thinks that, I don't know, but that's where I stand on this.
I'm, for one of the rare times, I am not on the same page as Tony on this one. I'm a dead no on this one.
It's fair.
I don't know. I don't think I think I probably articulated and non-verbalized enough about it. But it just looks like a safety nightmare to me, and without any input, I'm not saying yes to anything without any sort of expert opinions and anything on this, because to me, and, you know, I drive by here almost every day, this looks like an absolute nightmare in reality.
We're actually, just to be clear, we're not talking about saying yes to something without knowing if, what we're saying is we're pursue the idea, or not pursue the idea. And
Yeah.
pursuing the idea means the township staff looking at it.
But the way this was presented was, we're saying if an idea comes up with that checks boxes for people, it's not coming back to us to give another opinion on what the final plan would be. And I'm right now looking at this and I'm skeptical enough about it, I'm not inclined to say yes to something I'm never going to see the final product on.
Okay.
The other just straight administrative concern I have is that, to your point, it needs further vettings, everything we've talked about, including our own traffic engineer. That means the township would incur more expenses to review another plan that the township has to pay for. And then obviously you all have to pay for stuff to bring it there. That I don't mind, obviously. So I want in terms of what the level of effort that the township has to put in to review another set of plans, I'm concerned about because of the expense that it takes and the time that it takes of our staff away from other things.
If we have asked, I think, the questions that we're going to ask for the time being, do we want to open the floor to public comment on the matter? I think to get there, we'd need a motion first. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And just before we get to that, I did have I guess, a couple other questions. Something came up, you were talking about putting in more trees where it had been, in the open space where it had been farming. I think the board, or general consensus last time was we wanted trees there. You came back with that, and our liaison has now said there's talk at the board level of sort of reforesting that and doing more than just open space with some trees. What's is that just a pie in the sky? Is that, where is that?
No, so
Where's the board?
where's the board? So
supervise?
we haven't had a formal discussion, vote, any motions, et cetera, about that, right? We've had one-on-one conversations on what we'd like to see. We've listened to what Planning Commission has said, what the EAC has said, what the Farmland Preservation has asked for. Obviously, Patterson Farm Access is number one. Patterson Farm Lane, or Patterson Lane, sorry, mixing and matching here. Patterson Lane access is number one from that area. So that's, and we would lean more towards unfettered access, so the idea of chaining it up is a little disconcerting, I guess. In terms of that area between the development and the bypass, I think in conversations with board members, it sounds to me, and again, we haven't debated this yet, it sounds to me that we're leaning more towards putting more trees, and that could include strategically locating different trees so that we can get birds to come in, eat the seeds, do what they do with the seeds, and more trees grow, right? Doing that type of thing, so we're not planting a whole forest, but we're getting a forest to come in, so we get that nice we get more trees, and we get the habitat and everything that is, but we also get a good buffer between a heavily trafficked area and residential neighborhoods. So I think that's where the board is leaning. Could you get something in there that is more passive open space? Probably in some area. That would be it's a nice benefit, right? But we'd also have to make sure it's tough to maintain that sometimes, so the HOA would have to address it. We'd want to also, to Colin's point earlier, make sure that there's clear access if there is some active open space. And any paths or anything else we'd want to put in front of our disability advisory board, because I know it's nice I personally don't love paved trails, but other people need them, so I'll defer to them on their recommendations on that stuff. But we could do some forested area with a path through there, just as we do sometimes. So I think that's probably where the board's going to go, but obviously we have to have that discussion. I don't know if that helps you, Tony.
Just a quick question for Justin. One of the farmland members reached out. Would you need like a certain buffer, like feet-wise, for tractor equipment from the property?
Dan, are you just for the existing farmland to
Correct.
remain? And we are, if you look at the landscape plan, there's still going to be along the existing farmland along the north of the property. There's going to be no trees there for that
Okay.
reason. So the buffer that I think you're speaking to occurs on the farmed property.
Okay.
And that is remaining along the whole perimeter because there is that trail, or I'll call it the paved or gravel path that exists that's off our property that's to remain.
Okay.
So I think I met with him and his concerns, and I think he was satisfied with that
Okay.
remaining, and we didn't change that.
Okay, perfect. I'll relay that to him. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Dan, to your previous points, the matter of the level of forestation here, et cetera, is that something that needs to be resolved before this passes out of planning to the board, or are you just letting the developer know that that's something that can be addressed at the final level with the board?
I think it's more the latter, Colin. I mean, you all can obviously make your recommendations how you'd like to see it. I would, if the one recommendation I would make, though, to be considerate of our residents and other committees that we like to have review these to some extent, is if there is a recommendation for some type of path through a forested area or an open space with a path that are disability, two things. One, and you mentioned one of them earlier, Colin, one, that there's clear access, so you're not going through someone's backyard. And then two, that the Disability Advisory Board has an opportunity to provide feedback. But otherwise, the level of, I don't think we need to say it's going to have X number of trees per acre or anything like that. We can work that out at the next level of meetings.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this as, they have buffering in there, like we talked about, and I think that's sufficient if they want some recreation or more open space in there. But in my opinion, if we find reason to put more trees in there, that's just a better buffer for the neighborhood, to me.
And that's the conversation.
So I'm like, to me, and that one is different because like the scale of what can happen in there from the starting point, which is here, to fully forested, to me, as I'm perfectly happy to leave that because I'm happy with the other solution on that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with Adrian. I'm happy with either solution, either that it be usable as passive recreation space, in which case there's just clear, can be really accomplished by signage, honestly, just to make sure that we don't run into neighbor conflict in the future. Or that it be more heavily forested, in which case it just serves as buffer and return to the natural forest of the area. So I'm comfortable with either approach. Adrian, on the matter of the right out, I think I just want to ask if the matter before us is to approve or deny the plan as built, or to approve or deny the plan as built, with the recommendation that the town and the developer and PennDOT work together to try and make that right out work. So are you saying that you're not on board at all with?
I'm not on board with that if it's not going to come back to us.
Okay.
I'm being plain on that. And I don't want to, I'm not trying to create this like air of fog. That's the way I feel about it. I think it's important enough and I think it's serious enough that I'm not willing to put a yes on that if that's part of the continuum. That's
No, I understand.
That's where I am.
I'm not able to see who's in the room. I imagine we have some residents in the room. Is that an accurate guess?
Do you have a motion in a second yet?
No, there's
okay.
been no motion made yet. No.
Okay. He was moving towards public
so
comment, so I
just-
wanted to ask.
Yeah, you're right. So just to move if everyone's amenable to it, I'd like to make a motion. We can move to public comment, and then after public comment, we can amend the motion if necessary if the public comment drives us one way or the other. Is everyone amenable to that approach?
Sure. I mean, I'm perfectly amenable to moving the conversation forward.
Yes.
So I will move that we that we recommend that the Board of Supervisors review and accept the petitioner's request for preliminary and final approval for the plan which has been presented to the Planning Commission. Further, I will, through the motion, recommend that the town staff work with the petitioner to determine the viability of a right out onto the bypass, and if viable, to work with PennDOT to see if that can be incorporated into the final accepted plan. Do we have a second on that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. So with that said, prior to, are we okay opening public comment this time? Great. Let's open public comment. If you have a comment, please come to the podium, state your name, whether or not you're a township resident. Please try and limit your comment to 3 minutes if possible. We know that there's a lot going on here tonight.
Okay, I'm going to try and get this mic right because I know last time there were problems with hearing me. Maybe for those
You
that
sound
were.
great.
Okay, Robert Piper, 1209 Bridal Estates Drive. This is my husband Daniel Seekins, also 1209 Bridal Estates Drive. Now we'll start with the trees. There seems to be an obvious difference here. Preserving natural features of the site. It's also mentioned in section 178-87A3E. The Township's Environmental Advisory Council recommended saving the magnificent large trees, some with trunk diameters almost as wide as 4 feet. After seeing my picture here, I surely hope that you will agree with me, the Township's Environmental Advisory Council and I, that we should insist that these beautiful large trees with magnificent canopies should be saved. Here is the picture. I checked with the EAC and they said, contrary to the last time the developer said none of these trees are what the EAC are talking about, the EAC confirmed that the trees, the large, magnificent trees on both sides of this large home are what they want preserved, just like I do. Now, then we have from the developers an arborist note. I spoke with the arborist, Richard Mowry, tonight, and he said the only thing he listed on his report were the unhealthy trees. He did not mention any of the healthy trees. And in fact, none of these have large diameters, meaning that the ones we want to protect with diameters almost as wide as 40 or 48 inches or 4 feet are not in the letter that he says are unhealthy trees. As I point out, I talked to Richard Mowry tonight, and he confirmed the only things on his letter were the unhealthy trees that are at end of life or should be taken down. There's no positive, wonderful language here about other trees on the site, including these massive large trees here. So for the developer to say, oh, the arborist letter says that there's nothing to be protected, no trees to be protected, they're just not healthy enough, none of the trees on the side should be protected, it's just a misimpression of the truth. And this is according to their own arborist, which I spoke to tonight, Richard Mowry. Therefore, the EAC and I both agree that all of these large trees should be preserved. That would be consistent with the township ordinances. What else do we have? We now have the issue of safety, which is also something that needs to be addressed if you're going to go into the back, access the back of a current neighborhood. As you probably know from the last meeting, we have a number of families in Surrey Lane and on Bridle Estates near Surrey Lane, Bridle Estates Drive, 4- and 5-year-old children. I've literally seen my neighbors, small children, on their bicycles riding down Bridle Estates Drive. This is not the place to send through that access over 100 to 200 cars per day while they're riding their bicycles down this Bridle Estates Drive. Bridle Estates Drive also has cars parked on the curb of families, relatives, on any day of the week. So now you've got children on bicycles, you've got cars parked on the curb with people getting in and out of the cars, and you want to send another 100 to 200 vehicles from this access in Surrey Lane through that Bridle Estates Drive. It doesn't make sense to me. Now, for those that don't know, someone asked last time, well, where is Quarry Road? The entrance to Bridle Estates Drive, which is the entrance to Bridle Estates neighborhood, is off Quarry Road. And I mentioned before, if you make a left onto Quarry Road from Bridle Estates Drive, typically on a regular basis through the seasons, you're going to have, deer season, you're going to have groups of deer hanging out on either side of Quarry Drive or Quarry Road. These are unpredictable deer, and as I mentioned at the last meeting, around the corner on Lindenhurst Road, we had a deer slam into the side of our car, caused thousands of dollars of damage, and thank God we weren't seriously hurt or killed. But on Quarry Road, we've had numerous near misses of these deer. They show up at sunset, sometimes during the day, sometimes late at night. You never know when they're going to suddenly jump in front of your car or vehicle. So do you want to add another 100 to 200 vehicles coming out of Quarry Road, subject to these groups of deer, unpredictable, that can cause serious injury or death to these additional car drivers? I don't think that's the right way to go. What else do we have here? Also, going up, making a left out of Bridle Estates onto Quarry Road. You've got a hill that goes up to Cemetery Ridge. If you want to veer around a bicycle rider in your lane going up to Cemetery Ridge, you have to go veer into oncoming traffic. But you can't see oncoming traffic because it's behind the Cemetery Ridge. How many of you have even done a site visit to see what I'm talking about? So you don't get it. You don't realize that you can't see the oncoming traffic because of this very small family cemetery that literally creates a short veer around the small cemetery and back down to Lindenhurst. And if you're coming from Lindenhurst, you can't see the traffic coming up the hill to Cemetery Ridge on the other side. So now we've got the likelihood of more traffic collisions because the people that want to veer around the bicycles can't see the oncoming traffic. Now add to that, we've got...
If I may, I appreciate from the last meeting, there was some public comment related to the safety of traffic already within Bridle Estates. I believe the town's traffic engineer has already started that study, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm certain that Mr. Majewski can take your concerns about the safety of Quarry Road back to the appropriate folks in Public Works and the town's traffic engineer to look into those safety matters as well.
Yeah, I know that there actually is I believe it's a 15-mile-per-hour warning sign at that sharp curve at the cemetery. And that's why years ago they lowered the speed limit along Quarry Road to 25 miles an hour due to those safety concerns.
I've only seen 25, and when I'm going 25 miles per hour, I have somebody on my bumper. Like I am suddenly going 20 miles per hour below the speed limit. This happens on a regular basis.
We think we can certainly recommend some additional traffic enforcement in the area just to make sure that people get the message that that's an area where they need to drive more safely.
I'm just telling you.
And I don't mean, no, I understand. I was just going to say, I don't mean to be rude, and I know you have a lot to say. But I do want to be mindful of the time of everyone in the meeting. And if it's possible for you to wrap your comment, that would be appreciated.
Sure, I'm just saying that we've got numerous safety threats here. If you allow these 100 to 200 vehicles per day to come through Bridal Stage Drive, whether it's the greater likelihood of just a single driver getting distracted and hitting one of these children on their bicycles on Bridal Stage Drive or Surrey Lane, hitting somebody that's getting out of their car parked on the curb, a relative or friend of a homeowner, or a jogger who's running down Bridal Stage Drive. This is just not the wrong place for adding another 100 to 200 vehicles per day through this Surrey Lane access. All this to say, I think that the whole issue of dismissing this letter from the arborist is really inappropriate. I think the arborist, through my conversation with him tonight, made it clear I've only listed the unhealthy trees. That was my charge. I did not list the healthy trees. And the unhealthy trees are not even close to the diameter of these massive trees, which the EAC agrees with me should be saved. So I'm strongly encouraging you to recommend that these trees be saved. This is not contrary to the letter from the arborist.
Mr. Murphy, as a follow-up to his comments, was there a formal tree survey completed at the site?
Yes, there was. There was only unhealthy trees, which is why that's all that's in the report. And also, the EAC letter, if you look at the new EAC letter, there's no mention of the trees because all the trees that are on the plan to be removed are allowed to be removed, and they are in a dead disease or dying state. So we did do an arborist study. The report stands. We have no further comments. And
Yeah, it is what it is.
No, I'm asking, do you have,
And we did a survey.
Yeah.
do you have a tree survey that says
we did
X tree
the
here, DBH there, et cetera, on the plan?
our Alta survey shows all existing trees above the certain diameter that your township regulates, and then the arborist report goes then and basically evaluates all those trees based on the survey.
The arborist report does not go to the healthy trees.
There are
Not one. I've got the copy of the letter here for each one of you if you want to see it.
No, I have a copy of the letter
We
too.
all have
What I'm wondering is if he created a survey plan that shows all the trees on the survey plan, and then can you take that?
Created the survey plan.
Just
we
hear
got
me
it.
out for a second. Can you cross-reference his letter to every single tree that's on the survey plan?
We can do
And are
that.
there any that are missing?
We can do that. Yeah,
You
that's-
know where I'm going?
I do. Yeah,
I
it's-
want you to
can
check,
do it.
I want them to check off that they didn't, indeed, to your point, I'm a tree guy. I love trees. He knows this. He hates when I ask about trees, I'm not gonna lie. You want to be able to look at a tree.
Not any question.
Yeah.
not just answer.
The
Wait.
EAC referred to trees with diameters close to 4 feet. That's 48 inches.
I'm
If they
well
look
aware.
at this arborist letter, there's
I'm
not
not
a
disagreeing with
single
you.
one of these unhealthy trees that are close to 48 inches in
You've
diameter.
said that 4 times. We heard you.
So
No.
all I'm asking him to do, at least before you come before the Board of Supervisors, because you know we're going to bug you about this, is to have a plan ready, a tree survey plan that shows all the trees, all of them, not just the unhealthy ones. I'll say that 10 more times if I have to, right? And then make sure it cross-references the arborist report. And I am genuinely skeptical of arborist reports. Some of the ones I've seen come before the board are some of the worst reports I've ever seen. So I want to make sure, well, they've said every tree on a 10-acre site is dead. Obviously, I disagree with that, right? That's not your site. I'm not saying that. But I just want to make sure that belts and suspenders, we have everything covered so that everyone sees the reality of the site. You have everything covered. And anything that the EAC's issued, that you've addressed it before you come before the board. Fair enough?
May I make a point here that I requested for weeks a copy of this arborist report, and I only got it from Jim Majewski yesterday, when the date of the letter was April 7th. How fair is that to the homeowners to get this one day before this meeting?
Jim, when do we
I
get?
think there needs to be at least some kind of deadline to provide this kind of arborist report, say 2 weeks, and provide it to the homeowners so that we have an opportunity, a reasonable opportunity to push back on what it says.
I don't disagree with you. When I set an agenda for the Board of Supervisors meeting, packages have to be in by a certain day in order to be on the agenda. I get it. Jim, when did we get the letter?
I believe we received it on Saturday and forwarded on Monday morning.
And put it on the website and all that other stuff?
Correct.
Okay.
And yet this was months earlier when it was requested by the township.
I get it. I'm just asking our staff when he actually got it, so.
And the trees are all cataloged with their sizes on, I believe, the demolition plan.
Okay. So let's make sure to present that at one of these meetings so we can be clear.
Before we appear, in public next, we'll have an exhibit matching up the report and the survey with the trees.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And even though it probably doesn't need to be said again, we are complying with the tree ordinance of the township. We're not looking for any waivers or modifications. We're complying with the requirements of your tree ordinance.
Right. So,
Just so you know.
No.
Everybody forgets that.
So
Just so you know.
the one thing about the tree ordinance is when we talk about replacing trees or not, it's
know.
whether or not they're dead, dying, or decaying,
get it.
right?
I
So
get it.
there's some question as to whether, right, it's been raised, we have to address it.
We will be more
Okay.
than fair with how you analyze.
Right.
And for, just to that note, our replacement tree calculations do not take into account dead, disease, and dying. It's just a straight replacement. So we're not trying to take credit for them being dead and not saying we're replacing them. We're replacing them based on their caliper, whether they're dead, diseased, and dying. So we could take it to that level we're not using the report to that extent. We didn't go get a tree report saying that we're not.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
And then you're replacing on site in the open area.
Yes, so we're not trying to skirt the system and the requirement of replacement trees. We're just trying to, there was a concern from the residents about the health and quality of the trees. We did have an arborist go on site. We could have then went the next step and said, they're dead, disease, and design, we're not gonna have replacement trees for these trees, and that would have been justifiable under the MPC and how the code works. We're not doing that. We're still
All right.
replacing the trees.
So, this planning commission, they're doing their thing, but when you come before the board, just be ready with all of that information, please.
Will do.
Give it to you
Present
in
to the board.
advance so we don't even have to talk about it. You can,
Oh, we'll still talk about it.
you'll
but
want to talk about it
We'll
anyway.
still talk about it, but we do appreciate it in advance.
Waste a lot of time, but okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Amy Wright Radoziski. I am not a resident of the township, but I am an owner of that property that is being debated today. I am very familiar with the trees. I have a degree in ornamental horticulture. The picture of the trees that he has is from my parents' backyard. My parents, when my brother got married 32 years ago, my parents moved into a modular home which is located in the back. At that time, they had a separate house in the Poconos. They dug up trees from the house in the Poconos, and they brought them to the house there and planted them. So those trees are not old. The only tree in the yard that has any age to it is a pin oak tree, which is near the front of the house. It has been struck by lightning, okay? So it is not a viable tree. There is no trees with a 4-foot diameter except for possibly that pin oak tree. There's no other trees. We had trees lining the driveway. They were all killed by disease or whatever. We had trees in the pastures. The cows rub up against them, and so they're damaged on one side. The only trees that possibly could have any, livelihood or whatever are ones that my parents dug up from their house in the Poconos and brought to their house here to plant. So there's not any wonderful trees. And like I said, I have a degree in ornamental horticulture. I'm very familiar with trees. I'm not an arborist per se, but there are no wonderful trees. There's no 4-foot diameter trees except for that one pin oak that was struck by lightning. That's it for the trees.
Thank you for your comment. Is there further public comment from the audience?
It's coming up, Colin.
Coming up.
Thank you.
Hi, Alex Davidoff, 1233 Bridal Estates Drive. Thanks, all of you, for giving me the time to speak this evening. I am supposed to present the petition to you guys against opening Surrey Lane. It's very important. It was signed by, I guess, 87 of the residents. I mean, that's a traffic concern petition. I believe I kind of spoke to it last time. That's one of the biggest things that we are concerned with. And I am grateful for Member Costello's comments on the right turn out. That is something that I can speak on behalf of all the residents that none of us are going to want that. It's pretty hard no on us. I would appreciate it if the Planning Commission would move to not consider that.
I'm curious because at the last meeting, it obviously wasn't you, but I thought I heard from others about all the traffic going on one road, and which was essentially what the builder was trying to address was the concerns that at least I think they heard and I heard. You're saying something different. You have a petition that is signed by 87 residents that says otherwise, right?
It's more strictly, it's against opening Surrey Lane, period. But the biggest concern that all of the residents had to opening Surrey Lane was connecting to 332. Nobody, we have basically preference on the entire development. Everybody's going to sign on to that saying they don't want that. There are going to be more mixed opinions on the rest of the traffic in the development. Nobody's going to want a connection to 332. We're going to fight that one extremely hard. So we would appreciate it if the board would move to not consider that. If you're not going to do it while I'm speaking, that's fine.
Yeah,
I understand.
public comment's still open,
Yeah,
so that'll be later.
So
Yeah, sorry, sir, we have to get through public comments. So thank you.
I'll be as fast as possible. No
worries, no rush.
Okay, cool. I did express our preference to having a lot count reduction, that you guys are granting a lot of waivers on behalf of a number of things, and we believe that certainly you don't have to grant all those waivers, and you could certainly require more open space, reducing the lot count. That would alleviate a lot of the traffic concerns, I think. Like you to at least consider that in what you're doing. Speaking personally, I'm speaking on my own personal opinion here. I have a 3-year-old son. I have a daughter on the way. So
Congratulations.
thank you. I'm intimately concerned about traffic. I've come to my own personal opinion that I want to see this land developed, and I want to see these guys be the ones to develop it. But I don't want 47 homes. We had spoken about trees previously on the previous meeting. We talked about tree lining on the north side of the property. I understand that it's not on the property line per se, but we believe that the Planning Commission can ask to have trees planted on the properties themselves. I mean, I have trees in my backyard. I plant trees in my backyard to, add some buffer in between the property. I paid to do that. I certainly think that they could pay to do that on their properties that they're developing on the north side of the property. And I guess last that I'd like to see is and this I can say on behalf of, I guess, 50 some of the residents, probably closer actually in the neighborhood of 60 or 70. We'd like the front entrance to Bridal Estates to have some sort of landscaping done as a part of whatever work they're doing with the HOA. We don't want any traffic calming at all on Bridal Estates Drive or the portion of Surrey Lane that's already been developed.
I'm sorry, you said the portion that's already been developed?
Yeah, no additional traffic calming measures. I don't think it's going to do anything but be a nuisance. You may have a different opinion, but everybody who lives on Bridal Estates doesn't want that. Maybe there might be some, but the general majority opinion is no further traffic calming that is in the existing development.
But sorry, just to be clear, I don't believe that there's any proposed changes to the existing roads of the existing neighborhood. Is that accurate, Justin?
Yes, that's accurate.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that there aren't going to be any proposed changes in the future as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did
I-
talk
I
about exploring, possibilities for that. And I think as we explored that, even putting up speed limit signs, I know that did not go over favorably with the neighborhood. And in general, for traffic calming, you want the majority of the neighborhood, typically like 70% of the people, to buy in before you do that. Right, Jenny?
Yes.
So she used to be on our Citizens Traffic Committee, so.
And I want to go, before we get too far away from that discussion, I remember this and just jogging my memory about the trees along the back row of houses, like he was talking about. Was that a conflict with the farmland needs?
It was, exactly. That is active and existing farmland, so there was a request to not put any large trees along that perimeter, so that is,
So, because I think, and if I remember right, the first 5 or 6 houses have the trees behind it.
yes. Which is, the houses closest to the existing homes that would be impacted most directly by the view shed, we're buffering that, but then our compromise with the Farmland Preservation Committee was to keep the rest of it open.
They can put, that's exactly what I'm saying. I understand, if you don't, not going to put the trees right on the property line, that's fine, but we're talking about trees being removed here. You can put trees on the property itself. I plant trees on my property. They can plant trees on those properties on the north side of the
Landscaping.
To your point, if I may, there's not going to be a deed restriction on these lots that says you can't plant trees in
sir.
your own backyard, right?
Correct.
Is that what you're getting at?
No, I'm saying they should plant the trees
want
on the
them-
north side of the property. It's very easy for you to recommend that as a part of the plan, I think. I mean, you could see all the other different, I mean, certainly somebody can move in and cut them down, but we would want to see them put in there as a part of the plans.
Question for these guys. Do you own any land to the north of the development that is not considered somehow, that is part of the HOA and not part of one of the lots?
No.
So it would have to be on someone's lot?
Yes.
Okay. Just still I'm not against that. I'm just making sure I'm clear as to what they own.
I mean, I know you talked about planting trees. I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. And certainly it makes the homes more desirable to sell. I don't understand why they wouldn't be on board with it.
So, not to speak for them, sometimes it's people want to do what they want to do with their own homes. To your point, cutting
Cut
them
'em
down
down.
later. But I get it. I get it. Can start somewhere, right? That's where you're getting at.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah, that's all I have. I want to go back to some of the other people who want to talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before you finish, you'd mentioned a petition?
You really want me to drop it off here?
No, we haven't seen it here, so what does it say?
I'll bring it in. I've emailed it to Dan and Jim. I can CC you. I can have them send it to you if you don't want to have my email address or whatever.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you. Edna Dillaplane, 75-year resident of Lower Makefield Township. I'm here tonight to speak in person to protect my property rights. The road, now known as Patterson Lane, was necessitated to maintain access to the properties adversely affected by the construction of the interstate. Current proposals threaten denial of access to Yardley-Newtown Rd, threaten reduction of services quality, including utilities, deliveries, and emergency vehicles, and also threaten encroachments of the use and enjoyment of my property. As of now, the proposed impacts on my property are entirely unacceptable.
Can you tell us which one is your property?
Jim, can you bring up, it's probably the aerial is probably the best, if you can bring up JS. So the At the top of Patterson Lane, it's closer to Brattle Estates. At Patterson Lane dead ends at Mrs. Delaplane's property. So
Yes.
the existing Patterson Lane served two properties. The one just south of that, Jim, if you could click on the Redmond Torbert piece that's there, is the one parcel that's undeveloped. And the Delaplane parcel is at the end of Patterson Lane, and that is the northern property there. So just to calm some of the concerns, the Patterson Lane is going to remain exactly in its current state. We are not proposing to rip up any of the roadbed. The only material change will be that it is not a township-owned road, and that was only at the request of the township because
So that means that I will not be able to exit onto Yardley-Newtown Road, and the road will no longer be plowed as it is now.
both of that is not correct. The plan is for you to maintain the access that you have today to your property. Now, there's going to be a supplemental access through the community, but there's no plans to change the way you are accessing your property today.
There's not the chains and the ballards.
The chains will be for the residents, so that residents can't use that access to access the community, and that is at PennDOT's request, so that it's not becoming a second access to the bypass. But that is going to remain access for emergency vehicles, and of course, your property is an existing property off of that road, so the plan is to maintain that access as well.
And it will still be maintained by the township?
Not by the township. It'll be maintained by most likely the developer.
I'd like to see that in writing.
That's something
Will be.
yeah, that's something we can work out.
And Justin, for Madam Delaplane here, the alternative approach that you presented with the right out only, I think you mentioned that in that instance that there would be a chain across Patterson Lane.
There's always going to be a chain. When I say Patterson Lane is going to be chained, it's not at the entrance. It's the chain off our community. And I'm using that term just so.
Up here?
Yes.
Versus
Do
down here?
you want to show us on the map,
Can you
just
show
so
that,
that,
please?
because I think there's
Okay.
confusion.
That's okay. This works. So Patterson Lane is going to it's an emergency access, and it's going to be used by farm vehicles and by Mrs. Delaplane. So the chain, it's going to be left open down here, signed for emergency vehicles only, and of course for resident access. But the chain is going to be at this point here. So this is going to be an extension to come through our community. If Mrs. Delaplane wants to come through our community and access her driveway there, she can do so. But the chain is going to occur here to allow people that you cannot come off of the bypass down Patterson Lane into the community. And that is strictly a request to PennDOT because PennDOT does not want that to be a new access point to the community.
Justin, can I ask you to show it on the other screen
Yes,
too,
yeah,
just
sure.
in case people didn't see it?
I got you. I'm going with you one at a time. So this is Patterson Lane. If you could back up so everyone else can see a little bit. This is Patterson Lane right here. So this is going to be maintained access through here. The chain and bollard is going to be at this point right here to prevent people from coming into the community. So if you wanted to get to our community off of Patterson Lane, you cannot do so. Mrs. Delaplane can. Obviously, emergency vehicles are going to have the ability to remove the chain to access it, but that is not going to be a private access point.
Down here on 332 Patterson Lane, is there access off 332 from Patterson Lane?
There is today. So it's
In the future, when this project is...
Sorry, hold on, gentlemen, I'm sorry. Justin, if you would try to rephrase Robert's question.
Okay, so-
that's captured in the record as well.
Robert is asking if there's going to be access off of Patterson Lane as there is today, and basically asking if the access off of Patterson Lane is going to remain as is, and the answer is physically yes, but it is going to be restricted to emergency vehicles only, to farmland vehicles, and to Delaplane access. That is it. There's going to be.
If I,
This is going to be wide open to traffic, and the chain is going to be, here's going to be so that access to the new proposed development.
Yeah, Mr. Piper was just saying that the chain would block off people from getting in through the development.
Correct. It's to restrict residents from using Patterson Lane for access to the community. That is it. It is going to be open for emergency vehicles, maintain access to the Delaplane, and also for farmland preservation use. And that has been discussed with. Go ahead. Sorry.
to the comment that the developer would be responsible for maintaining the plowing of that road. So I'm presuming the developer writes the original HOA agreement. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
And would the developer be amenable to putting a covenant or whatever the correct term is into that original agreement?
I did not.
The HOA is responsible for maintaining the plowing to that property and may not amend that particular provision without the approval of the Board of Supervisors of the township.
That's correct.
It's always the case.
Yeah, and it's good that that's spelled out clearly in writing, which it will be.
It is a recorded
it's important
document.
that
Yeah, it will be prepared by the developer, be reviewed by us, and it is a recorded document.
Yeah. So, in the event, let's say there's a big snowstorm, the HOA doesn't get a snowplow out there, right? And we find out about it, it becomes an emergency situation, the township has to go out and plow it because of something that's not happening. Township would plow it, issue the HOA a bill, right? As we've done with other property maintenance issues, but I generally would do that, but that's how it would happen.
We would agree. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think this works out nicely. I know we talked earlier about putting a chain up near 332 also, so this just makes it, all the issues with that go away for Mrs. Delaplane.
Thank you.
No, she's doing the same, I think.
Is there further public comment in the room?
Sure, I have to respond to that. That doesn't cover it at all. Steve Delaplane, third-generation resident of Lower Makefield Township, third-generation taxpayer in Lower Makefield Township. I've raised my kids here, and I intend to enjoy the fourth and fifth generation as they are here in Lower Makefield Township. Now, if you'd bring up the same image you showed before, and we can point out what is going on with.
Mr. Delaplane, can you bring the microphone with you?
There's on this side.
Thank you, Dan.
Okay, I'll do both sides here, okay? The indication when it was first shown up here where the bollards were was here, and then it was corrected to here. This is, in fact, where they're, if you zoom in on that and show the markings, that's where they're proposing access stopping.
Not stopping that. So
And now, the access is a chain there, right?
So-
So that's not that is not an access unchained to the Delaplane property.
So it is, and I think you're just looking at the rendering. So what you're seeing is the color of the new pavement and not looking at the color of the old pavement. To put this simply,
Okay, if you
the
could
Patterson, just let me just finish one sentence because I think it'll solve all your concerns and we can move past this. Patterson Road, as you access it today, is going to be completely unchanged. You are not going to notice a difference. You are going to be able to get from the bypass to your house with exactly the same points of access. What you're seeing there is the emergency access vehicle turning into our community, and also an ability for you, if you would like to, access your driveway through our community as well. The Patterson Lane roadbed that you have today, from its point of the bypass to your driveway, will be completely unchanged. There is absolutely no change in access.
No
being proposed.
encroachments, no bollards, no chains, no impediments to using Patterson Lane as the Delaplane family does today. They can do it tomorrow and next year and the year after that.
So are you saying that we will continue to see access as a no outlet of?
What we just said.
Let me finish, please. A no outlet straight through on Township Road 639.
No.
It's not a township road. We told you that.
So again, that's encumbrances on that access. So can we nail down, and through what process do we nail down, who is going to own it, who's going to be responsible for it? And you made the point of if they don't go and snowplow it, then you'll issue a bill to them. And what we do about the emergency services that can't get through that result in injury, death, will you just send them a bill?
No,
And how
the
much
township,
more?
the township would send out their forces to clear that access and then send them the bill for us doing the plowing.
Oh, fine, I don't care how you bill them, I'm just saying.
Well, I'm just saying we would take care of it, so
I'm
in the
saying
event that they
the
did not.
responsibility of this as access to the lots on this end should be through the township. And
The township is the one that asked us to accept responsibility for Patterson Lane. The township no longer wants to own or maintain Patterson Lane. They have asked us to do it, and we've agreed. Just so if you're looking to find the boogeyman, it's not us. The township has asked us to take over that road that historically the township has maintained. You understand that, right?
And I understand the impact that has.
Well, don't look at me, talk to them. If you want to do something different, we've agreed to accept responsibility to own and maintain it the way you and your family have used it forever. That's it.
I understand. The reason I'm looking at you is because you're talking.
Because I'm trying to.
That's simply it, okay?
Because you keep
Let's get back
saying
to let's get back to why I want to be up here in the first place, okay? Trying to address the motion, understanding what you're proposing to have this motion on. Can you clarify, are you just trying to do an up and or down vote for accepting and recommending all waivers be granted? Is that what the motion is?
I'll take a response to that. There are not very many waivers that have been requested at this point. Many of the waivers that are requested are related to things that either the township has asked for or are in some ways improvements, such as they're asking for a waiver from our requirements on road widths, and part of that is to achieve less impervious surface. I think the developer, when they originally came before us, presented what's called a by right plan, which, as best they can, it complies with the ordinances that we have on the books. What we can get them to change is relatively limited. In this case, I think what we're hearing from the engineer, from the developer, from the attorney, is quite clearly that your concern about access to your property will not be altered, with the exception of the ownership of the road. There'll be a different entity responsible legally for maintaining it.
And the township still would have the right to go in and maintain it in the event that the HOA does not follow through on their responsibility.
So will that be a public road?
I'm sure not. The township does not want to own that roadway any longer. I'm sure that, I shouldn't speak for the township, but I will, because they've asked us to accept responsibility, which we have. I don't think there's any scenario that the township wants to reclaim it and re-own it or take title to it after we take it. So.
Well, and that's the issue of you taking it, is that it leaves those lots on the far end as flag lots that don't have access to a public road. That is certainly encumbering both the use and the value of those lots. You can't deny that it's not affecting those lots in that way. Now, if you go back to this image of the image again, maintaining Patterson Lane as in the way it is currently and making the access restriction in and out here and just continuing to have this a public road with public access, no outlet, to maintain the existing access to the farmland preservation space, the Torbert property, and the Dillplain property. Status quo, easy solution. Why all the acrobatics around it?
Ask them.
You have proposed the plan. The current
I think
proposal is this.
Gentlemen, Gentlemen, thank you very much. Sir, I believe your point has been very clear. At this point in time, I believe the position of the developer is that that will be a private road that will be maintained for you. That road will be kept in its current condition, maintained for your access. I think that you've delivered the clear message to Mr. Grenier as our representative on the Board of Supervisors that your preference would be that the township maintain the responsibility for that road. And that is, I think, certainly something that's a decision that the Board of Supervisors would need to make. And I think that's certainly something they can consider when this plan comes before them.
Okay, so the piece that you didn't mention is maintaining the public road access to the existing lots.
I think we're, I'm sorry, I don't think we're covering new ground, and I apologize for that. The road as it exists today will be maintained. It will be maintained for your benefit and for your use. It will do so through the covenants of the homeowners association, and the homeowners association will not at a later time be able to restrict your access to your property from 332 without the consent of the Board of Supervisors. So I understand it's a difference between a private road and a public road, but in as many ways as we possibly can, I believe there are protections and covenants to your access to that road.
And all I would ask of the commission and staff and Mr. Murphy is that prior to bringing it to the Board of Supervisors, that the reasoning, justification, argument, et cetera, for changing it from a public road to a private road maintained by an HOA be provided to the board, because we haven't had the discussion as a Board of Supervisors, so the board doesn't know all the arguments for and against, but we would like to hear that as part of our decision-making process.
Dan, I think it's pretty simple. The applicant's here, and they've said that the town asked them to do it, so that's what they've done. If the town says we don't want them to do it, they won't do it.
Well, we're also part of the town.
Yeah,
We didn't ask for that, so I want to understand.
Who was it who
Yeah.
asked? So was it the Board of Supervisors or was it the staff? And if the information that you're asking for should come from staff.
Whoever has it, I just want the
No, but
information.
they're the ones who asked for it. So if there's a good reason for it, they would know what it is.
I don't disagree with you at all.
You know what I'm saying?
It's just,
So I'm just saying,
yeah.
you're asking the
Can I ask,
wrong person.
Jim, why did we ask them to take it over?
Currently, there's one house, well, actually, there were two houses accessing Patterson Lane, the Wright family house and the Dillaplane house. There was one other vacant lot that was owned by the Torbert family. That has since been bought by DeLuca. So essentially, and then with the Wright selling, you essentially had, I think, a 2,500-foot-long driveway for a single house that we would have to plow, maintain, repave. When the developer, based on our request, has offered to take over those obligations from the township, therefore saving us money. And at the same time, I think ultimately in the way the plan evolved, they've now addressed some of the main concerns from the Dillaplanes about maintaining their access as is. And prior to going to the Board of Supervisors, it would be good if that legal language on how all of that would exactly work, if that could be drafted up so that our Board of Supervisors can evaluate that and make whatever decision they feel is appropriate based on that input, that they're able to do that given more complete information.
One more
That's a
question
fair
on
summary
that.
from Jim. Of the-
Will I be
how it happened.
required to join the, will I be required to join the homeowners association to have my road taken care of?
No, you will not have to join the HOA. It'll be part of our maintenance and obligations as part of the new development.
Okay.
You will not owe any fees or maintenance cost.
Thank you for that.
Is she,
No,
sorry,
the
can I ask
other
a question?
question
Go ahead,
is,
sorry.
why did the township decide to give up that portion? Was it just so the developer could have enough for open space so he can squeeze 47 houses into 50 acres?
I think Mr. Majewski just gave the explanation a minute ago, but
Yeah, it didn't factor into their calculations. It was to no advantage to them. It was just sort of a financial obligation that they've agreed to take on for no real benefit other than to,
Create more open space.
not really, no.
Now, in your HOA documents for the Delaplane's benefit, will it be clear if there are any issues, if she has to contact anyone or anyone that owns the home in the future has to contact anyone, what their recourse is and the process procedures for doing so? So it's
Yes.
I want to make it as simple as possible for them to do anything.
There's also going to be an easement recorded against the property to give them access to that road for forever, you know, so that will be recorded against the property. That will never go away. They will forever have access to Patterson Lane or the new driveway to 332.
Okay. So getting back to what I brought up about the motion, trying to understand the process here, your indication is that you just are going to have one vote around all the waivers, yay or nay, without discussion of any of the individuals? I mean, I understand 20 waivers may not seem like a lot to you, but it does seem that some of them are quite substantial.
We've
And
reviewed
some of
each
them
of
are.
those waivers
and-
2.5 months
I'm
ago.
sorry, it wasn't your motion.
Mr. Murphy, thank you. So we have had this applicant on this project before this board many times to discuss these and every other waiver. I'm not aware of any waiver requests that are new. If I am, then Mr. Majewski or the town's engineer can certainly correct me on that. There have been a number of public hearings. Mr. Majewski or with a representative from RBE, I mean, are there any new waivers being requested tonight?
Only one new waiver, and that was really evolved out of the last meeting. So if you recall, we were originally designing the plan to be farmland. So the configuration of the open space really didn't come into play. Your ordinance has a requirement that the open space be at a ratio of a shape of a 4:1 length to width ratio. Obviously, the plan was at a state that we were not able to reconfigure that open space, so we still provided the open space requirement. It's not in the required length to width ratio that is required, but it is in the location that I think everybody wants from both the board and planning commission standpoint, as long as in addition to township staff. So that requires a waiver, but there's really not much we could do to avoid that.
And from a process standpoint, if we were to make a vote to approve this plan tonight, it's not an okay for them to put shovels in the ground. It's an okay for them to proceed to the Board of Supervisors to go before the Board of Supervisors with this plan, for the board to have their input and present final approval or denial of the applicant's claim to redevelop the property.
And it should be noted that a few of the waiver requests related to stormwater are sort of based on our subdivision land development has some antiquated requirements for stormwater management that we've cleaned up somewhat with our newly adopted stormwater management ordinance. Yet we still have to go back and now clean up saldo to eliminate those requirements that are superseded now by the stormwater management ordinance. It's sort of a catch-22, just like we've gone to all electronic submissions with limited amounts of paper, whereas our ordinance currently says we want 25 sets of everything, which we used to take 25 sets and throw away 20 of them. So I mean, that's sort of the nature of many of the waivers that they have. And I think, Remington Vernick, do you have any comment on, I think you had maybe one or two specific comments?
Yes, we had a couple comments just on a few of the waivers that are in there, one of which is for Saldo Section 178-20E9, that's on page 2. That's requesting that you'd not show the electric, gas, and communication data. It's our opinion that that would be good to show on this set of plans because it can affect where the water, sanitary, and storm is laid out.
I'll jump in there. We can show it. It'll be a cartoon and it won't be real. The utility authorities do like to have the location on their own, like they do their mapping themselves. I'll gladly show it on the plan to show that it can work, but we have gone through this process enough with all your utility providers to know that they are actually in control of the design. And my seal on the plan basically says that we know it can be done safely and there's enough area to do so. So I would respectfully still request the waiver, but if you want to see a cartoon on the plan, we can do that.
Have you started, I guess you've talked to some of these utilities. Have they
Yes.
given you any sort of preliminary sketch as to where they'd want some of these things
They
to
have.
go?
They will not provide any sketch until there's final approval by the township.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one of those waivers that's sort of, it sounds good in theory, but the cooperation from utilities to get them to tell exactly where they're going to put it, it's just non-existent.
Okay, if you're confident then that they can, all fit and it won't have an impact on the storm, sanitary, and water that is shown on the plan, then I think we'd feel, comfortable with that.
Good, thank you.
As long as, it's shown at some point. And then regarding on page 4, the minimum grade, this is for South Section 178-93F3F. For the reduction in the minimum pipe velocity and slope, and actually just in general, some of these stormwater items. I noticed in the report that you have, the PCSM report, that there is, it looks like some gutter spread and inlet spread. I don't want to say issues, but
It's another one of your antiquated ordinances. So you guys, your road design ordinance is extremely, I'm not going to say difficult to comply with. It's antiquated, it's impossible, and it's a standard that far exceeds PennDOT requirements. PennDOT requirement is that the spread off of a curb line cannot exceed 1/2 of a road width or the lane width.
Mhm.
Yours is 5%, 95% inlet capture. So to put that in contractor terms, you would probably have an inlet every 50 feet along a typical township roadway. So I don't know of a design that can meet that. I don't know of a developer that'll put an inlet every 50 feet. But we are here tonight, and we will say that we'll comply with PennDOT standards. And I've designed a few roads in your township, and they've all functioned very well based on that criteria.
okay, yeah, it looked like some of them had spread of up like around 10 to 15 feet. And so, we were just concerned if it's going to be, 15 feet into the
No.
roadway, then
And
that could have.
I'm
some
talking
issues.
to your office. We can comply with the 1/2 the lane width. That's pretty much the standard, the AASHTO and PennDOT standard. We can double up some inlets, but
Okay, yeah, I think.
95% capture is impossible.
Yeah, I think we'd feel a little bit more comfortable with that, just, seeing that it could be half of the lane, or half of the entire roadway, kind of, gave us a little bit of pause. And then I believe I had one other, I think that was a big one. Oh, and then the cover on some of the pipes for the HDPE, it's, that, I think it was 178-93F3H, just having a reduction in the minimum pipe cover. If you could just show us maybe that you've kind of explored some of the other options, like, elliptical concrete, just to try and make the cover work, I think, would be nice to see, but.
Yeah, we can work with your office. We're still going to need that waiver, and our justification is that the cover over top of the HDPE pipes may not meet your ordinance standard, but it meets the manufacturer's specifications. And the manufacturer's specifications actually mimic PennDOT's as well, too. So we are providing a safe design. The site is flat, and we're trying to make a lot of the basins work. So the cover is a safe amount of cover for the manufacturer's specifications.
Yeah, and that ordinance was written probably prior to even when the HDPE pipe was available.
I believe it was.
I believe that's, the bulk of our concerns, and it sounds like you're, willing to kind of meet with us and get some of these buttoned up, so I think we'd be comfortable with that. Thank you.
Jim, if I could ask you really quick, or just, as you probably know, we just passed the new stormwater management ordinance. It's been in the works for about a year. Have you done any comparisons of this design to our new stormwater management ordinance to see if it possibly complies with that?
I did.
Oh, good. Justin did.
Thought you were going to ask it. So.
Of course I was going to ask.
Yeah. So we did, and obviously we're, just for the benefit of everybody, we are not required to comply with that ordinance, but we did look at how we would comply if, based on our design. And we do meet with the new criteria. I can go through, obviously you're well aware what the changes were, but based on the new rate control requirements, we do meet the new rate control requirements with our current design. And we meet about 76% of the volume requirement with our current design. So that is, obviously your ordinance is very, more robust. It actually exceeds that of DEP requirements. But we're, happy to say that we're 100% of the rate control, and we're very close to meeting the volume requirement as well.
Before you get to the board, if there's any way to get closer to those metrics, we'd be happy to.
We will try.
Okay.
So thank you. I think you answered part of my question with regard to the discussion of the waivers. It sounds like there is some agreement on there are some of the waivers that are relatively trivial and that you might be prepared to have a motion to address those in bulk. But is it your position that, is it the position of the commission that all the other waivers have received adequate public deliberation and that you'll be ready to vote on the rest of them at this point?
I mean, my personal perspective is, again, we've talked through this plan multiple times. There are not substantial changes in anything that they're here before us for today, other than the potential proposed one-way exit onto 332. There's been a lot of communication on this. So from my perspective, I am comfortable with the waivers being requested. And as Mr. Majewski explained, they are largely in order to, because our ordinances are out of date, so they need it, or in some cases, because we've asked them to make the roads less wide, as an example, to reduce the amount of impervious surface here. I mean, at the end of the day, there are two other voting members of the commission tonight, and I mean, they can share their comment now, or they'll share their comment when public comment is over and we vote.
So one quick question around your last comment. Which category of waiver would you put things like the waiver to only have one public road access to the development of more than 25 dwelling units?
Well, I can answer that. That's why they originally had put that exit entrance out onto Route 332 that ultimately PennDOT determined was not feasible. There's no other way to go through it other than to go through preserved agricultural land, the Kimmelman farm that's to the left of the Wright farm, or to the west of the Wright farm, or to cut across farmland preservation property and condemn land to put a second entrance. But the intent of that is, in case of an emergency, do you have an emergency access means to get to the development if some catastrophe happens, like an accident or a water main break at the one entrance? Can emergency vehicles and people get through? In this case, with the emergency access using Patterson Lane, they've satisfied the meaning and intent of that, and that modification from the ordinance, I think everyone feels is acceptable, in that you actually are providing a means for access in the event of an emergency from more than one location. If that makes sense.
Thank you, Jim.
I'm sorry, I heard a voice. Is there?
I said thank you, Jim.
I see. Okay, so will we at least have a reading of what the waivers are as part of the motion? Or, I guess I'm trying to understand the process here, because earlier tonight, what I think I heard was that there was some modification of the process, and the motion now seems to include well, maybe they could go and introduce a different plan.
Sure. So
and-
let me address that. So we will not have a reading of the waivers. The waivers requested are all written and part of the public record. They are posted on the public record. The town's engineer just went over the few changes to the waiver requests that there are. The process here has not been modified, right? This is the applicant has come before us many times. We've requested them to make revisions and changes. They've made revisions and changes. They're before us again, and in fact, in many prior appearances, they've had the ability to ask us for an up or down vote, and they've asked for extensions of time to work on this. So, where we are now is in line with the process. This is how the process goes. This is one of many public meetings. We'll have a vote. If we vote to approve, it will proceed to the next step, which is the approval of the Board of Supervisors, which will have more engagement from staff, both the developer and town staff in the interim. So I don't know how to better answer your question, sir. We're not deviating from the normal process.
Okay.
Other than to say, I have made a motion.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, no, I don't mean to interrupt you, Colin. And I don't want to speak for Ms. Delaplane. I think he's trying to better understand the motion that you made, and if it's going to be an up or down vote on, I'll call it, for lack of a better description, the original plan presented tonight versus
Sure.
an up or down vote on a conditioned, the rather lengthy, what I'll call the lengthy description, or
Yes.
condition related to that right out alternative.
Thank you.
'Cause that was a little unique in terms of the two different plans.
The-
I think that's probably where the question is.
Thank you.
Is that fair?
Yes, that's a good summary. I would also say that it seemed that a number of the waivers, the responses to them referenced needing to have broader discussions around things, and that doesn't seem to be consistent with the motion to just have an up or down without those additional discussions.
So the motion that I made is for an up or down vote on the plan, the original plan presented, with the additional recommendation for study to see if the exit onto 332 is viable. I did mention when I made the motion that we may modify that, right? I may withdraw it or change it. Right now, we have public discussion ongoing. The items of continued discussion, those are customary. It's the town's engineer saying they want to see more detail, or Mr. Grenier saying we want more detail before it gets to the Board of Supervisors. So staff will continue to work through those things, whereas Mr. Giannotti is making representations, for example, that a certain approach they want to take is in compliance with the manufacturer's spec. The town's engineer will verify that with Mr. Giannotti and others before it gets to the Board of Supervisors. And I don't mean to speak for that body, but I'm certain Mr. Grenier will not allow them to approve a plan where the town's engineer has said their approach is not in standard.
I would concur with that statement.
Okay, so speaking to Mr. Costello's concerns, how does an up or down vote at this point, without addressing those additional discussions, how does that give your board another chance to review and address the issues?
On that one question, that I made the point very clear. If you vote yes with that kind of condition on, you're willing to vote yes and not have another look at the solution.
Okay. Okay, and I agree that seems to be what the motion is.
That's what that means.
Right, and all I'm saying, all I'm trying to do is understand the difference between that and the vote that says approve all the waivers without further consideration, because you also would not get another look at it, right?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we're voting on tonight is this plan, and then there's one question mark in the plan that the developer was asked to go take a look at. And they came out with what they thought was the only possible workable solution to what the township asked them for. So either way, we're voting on the plan. One just straight up, the other one has that one question mark. That's the only thing we're voting on right now.
I see. So,
Thank you, Adrian.
so two questions with that is that including the things that were posted in the last day or two? Or is that as of what would have been available for the last meeting on the 14th that got canceled?
It's including all the information that we have as of today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which hasn't necessarily been reviewed with the same way the previous stuff was. Okay. The other,
Well, I'm not sure that that's accurate.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the township staff has reviewed that information.
and so is there a review letter that?
Well, we heard from the
Make sure that,
engineer
'cause
this
it didn't look
evening.
like
and-
the stuff that was that was posted recently had a corresponding review from the various groups that normally had been reviewing the.
Well, I believe what was posted just recently was the response letter that Justin had said they pared down the Remington-Vernick letter to just the items that are still in question, to sort of summarize it for our planning commission to be able to get the succinct version of it. The arborist report about the trees, which now subsequently they're going to make a couple of revisions to more clearly show how that report matches up to their one plan that shows all of the trees to be removed so that you can compare, they said there's 10 trees that are in poor health, dead or dying, and there's maybe another 10 that aren't dead or dying, that they're going to remove. Something like that. And then the other item was the EAC gave us their updated review letter, I think on Friday or so, Saturday, whenever that was. And so we have that in the packet. So there's not a review needed of the review. It's sort of just a perusal of the review and a reading of it by our planning commission, which I hope they all did prior to this meeting.
So
I'd like to say, I thank you. I did ask everyone to try and limit their public comment to 3 minutes. We have given you a significant amount of time, and I know that this is a significant matter. It impacts your home and where you live, but I would like to give other residents an opportunity to ask their questions if there is other public comment remaining. If there are any questions on process and procedure that can be addressed with town staff, and there will be further opportunity for public comment before the Board of Supervisors if this matter proceeds forward out of the Planning Commission tonight. If it doesn't, it'll be back before us again, and there will be further opportunity for public comment at that time.
I see.
Do we have any other public comment in the room?
Yeah, I'll yield to another. I'm sorry.
Is there public comment on? Is there public comment online? Thank you, sir. I'll permit you space to ask another question, but I think the other folks in the room have been respectful of everyone's time. So if you can wrap up your comment, that would be appreciated.
And I apologize if I misunderstood that the public comment was to be referencing the motion and the appropriateness of that. I was mistaken that that the issues that the waivers represent were an attempt to clarify the plan, where at this point it seems that there's several issues that just hadn't been resolved nearly well enough to take to the Board of Supervisors. Things like proposed dedications of things like the proposals for abandoning the roads and such, and to whom and how. The types of questions that have been asked tonight, I think, indicated that that's not well understood by the applicant or the commission. So I was hoping that that we could just use some of that time to understand what the process was for clarifying those things. And now that I understand that your motion is specific to this piece of your process, and that you may be ready to modify or amend that motion, I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. folks, I didn't hear anyone who seemed enthusiastic about the option of exploring an additional ramp on or exit from the neighborhood onto 332 in an attempt to reduce cut-through traffic going into Bridal Estates. So at this time, I would withdraw my motion to approve the plan as presented with the option of the cut-through, unless, Adrian, anything that you've heard change your mind. I mean, we have 3 voting members, so if you're still a no.
No, I'm still a no on that one.
We heard one person tonight say he was adamantly against it and said he thought most of his neighbors were as well. At the last meeting, we heard quite a few people say they were not happy about what it would mean with all the back and forth traffic from the new development through the existing development, and they were looking for an answer. We heard a potential answer, which may or may not fly with PennDOT. I think it's still worth having the township look at the issue, whether the township thinks it could fly, because there were voices that were here at the last meeting that wanted a different alternative.
Yeah, I think my memory from that is the impetus for that was if we can get the entrance on Yardley-Newtown Road, then we don't have to connect Surrey. That's why people wanted that connector. It was a one or the other question, not a both question.
Adrian, let me ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If the applicant were willing to come back before the planning commission after going through that investigation, before going to the board of supervisors, would you be amenable to proceeding in that fashion? Is your concern just the plan itself, or is your concern that they will not come back before planning?
I have a couple of concerns. I think it's a bad idea personally, and and so I would need more information to vote yes on it. So if you want to, so if they're going to come back here, then that means essentially we're not voting on this.
Well, I don't know. I think what we're voting on is not a yes on it, but to explore it, and to have the township explore it first.
Look, I'm perfectly okay recommending to the board of supervisors that they explore this as an option, and if we want to do that, then we come back and do the process and review it with everybody.
So from a board of supervisors perspective, right, the planning commission is here to recommend final land development approval.
Yes.
If you're not comfortable doing that, or if the point is we really want you to study something before we know if that's final land development approval,
then it's not done.
then that's not what they're giving the board of supervisors to vote on. They're giving we kind of like it, we want you to look at this, but it's not the final approval and it hasn't been vetted yet. So
But Dan, that's perfectly acceptable. We can make whatever recommendation we want. We can make a full-throttled recommendation. We can make a half-hearted recommendation. We can make whatever recommendation we want.
I would ask that the planning commission do a full vetted review of this so that the board of supervisors has clear direction from the planning commission.
I guess if we're going that way, I would say there's two different motions. One, we approve this, in my opinion, we approve this as is without the access road. And then we put another motion forward that says, we also recommend sending a formal message to the board of supervisors that they might want to look into this as an option if it's something they want to explore with the developers.
I thought that's what we said
That's what the
an hour
motion.
and a half ago.
That's the pending motion.
That's
exactly the
happening in
pending
one
motion.
motion.
But that's not what but if, I guess the way I'm wording this, I'm not a good wordsmith, if we decided to add that, it would come back through. It's not, I'm not gonna, so we're not approving it, then the recommendation is, tell the board to task the township to look at this option, then we'll review it.
How about if I withdraw the concept plan with the right out option? So you only vote tonight on the merits of the plan that's formally submitted, and informally, we will continue to pursue that option.
That's
I will commit to you on the record that we will consult with the township staff about that other potential option, and if there is merit to it, And if PennDOT supports it, we will come back here and show you.
That's it.
I'm in
I don't think
favor
it's
of,
much different than what we talked about an hour and a half ago, but
we're splitting hairs here.
I
We're
agree.
calling the
but
same
I am-
thing, different
I
things.
don't want to be punished for a good faith
but
effort to
look,
come up
So,
with something.
so let's do this.
Sounds like
Let's,
where we're headed.
let's vote on an up or down, which is the original motion.
Yeah.
And then a second motion that we recommend the township supervisors direct staff to explore the issue with the applicant.
That's,
And that's really what the pending motion is, but we've now more formally separated it.
Decoupled them.
We've
Yeah.
decoupled them, but it reaches the same result. It's sending the
that's fine.
same message
But
to the
I just want to clarify, and
supervisors.
the hour and a half we talked about this, we weren't only talking about this.
Yeah.
We could have gotten to this in another 5 minutes.
Yeah, of course,
an
of
hour
course.
and a half.
And Maureen, does the Board of Supervisors retain the right to say thanks but no thanks? We'll go
Yeah.
with the original, and we're not going
So,
to expend township
that-
funds to look at this right out only.
Dan, you can ignore any recommendation that the board makes.
That's not what she's telling me.
Yeah, no, if you're doing it this way, because the first motion would be, or the first recommendation is to recommend the plan as is,
Yes, as is.
correct?
No,
Yep.
without
It's
any
two
mention
separate
of the-
motions,
Yeah.
two separate
Yes.
motions.
And they're a recommending body. So you can choose to accept the recommendation, you can choose to ignore the recommendation.
And likewise with
offense.
any
So
recommendation.
the answer is, no offense to the planning commission. So if the board of supervisors chooses not to accept this second recommendation, which is to explore this alternative ingress, you can ignore that. You can decide to just go with the
Right.
first recommendation.
We just want something that's, to Mr. Costello's point, we want something that's clean so that we have something.
That was the point I'm making. It's like, if we vote, if, right now, I'll vote yes, right now, if we just say it's for the plan as presented.
Which is proposed, that is clean. You're bifurcating the recommendation.
To be
think I said that- I said that
clear,
now, right?
I am, hold on. To be clear, I am formally withdrawing my complex motion, right? So there is no motion on the table at this time. I will move to approve the plan as presented by the applicant for preliminary and final approval.
Period.
It is the original plan that is the official plan presented before us.
Yes.
With the amendments or comments, inclusive of the comments this evening, and assurances made by the developer about
Tree.
the trees, the maintenance of Patterson Lane, the amendment to, I guess, the tree survey and things of that sort.
And yes, and that access to the
And
open
recommending
space
of the
be
waiver.
clearly delineated and marked. Right. If that is to be maintained as passive recreation, and recommending the approval or acceptance of the waivers.
Right.
Correct.
Is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
I'll second it.
Okay. Is there further discussion from the planning commission on the motion?
The horse is dead.
Hearing none, I will call the question. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
What do we?
I'm sorry, I only heard two ayes. Mr. Costello, did you vote?
Is that, there's a question from the audience. We created a new motion. Is there another set of public comment?
Oh, I apologize. I couldn't hear the audience because there's no microphone. Maureen?
Colin, yes, the answer is yes, there is. A new motion is on the table, so public comment does begin.
Thank you. Very well.
It's me again. Already introduced myself. So I'm trying to understand.
For the record, they're going to ask you to say your name and all that.
So I'm trying to understand the force of motion here.
Sorry. If you would please, just for we have someone who takes the minutes for the meeting. If you would again state your name and your residence, just for the record, I would appreciate that.
Okay, Steve Dillplain, third generation resident. Okay,
Thank you, Steve.
so I'm trying to understand the force of motion here. In a previous one of your meetings, you came up with a motion to send a letter to the Board of Supervisors about whether they had a preference for trees or buffers or farmland or something to that effect. Did that actually occur? I mean, do these motions actually result in actions?
So, Colin,
We did make the thank you, Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so the planning commission did make that recommendation to the board of supervisors. I, as the liaison to the board of supervisors and the sitting chair of the board, brought that back to the board to make them aware. We have not yet, as the board of supervisors, because we were waiting this meeting, we have not yet had any public discussion or votes on any agendas regarding this project. However, because they're making that recommendation to the board, that also goes to staff. Staff shares that information with the applicant, who is sitting in the meeting and understands that's the recommendation. So all that happens in that space. At some point if this moves forward, in the very near future, it'll have to be on a board of supervisors agenda where those topics will be covered again, much to Mr. Murphy's chagrin, but we will cover them again. And if there will be some motion made to approve or deny with all of those conditions considered. How the board votes on each of those conditions is up to the board at the time. But we would understand that that's a formal recommendation of the planning commission that's been addressed, both in the current plan as they're voting tonight and through their previous recommendation that was sent through staff to the board.
And part of that discussion was that the EAC would talk with farmland preservation and township staff about whether it should be farmland, trees, and after discussion with both entities, I think it was determined that the viability of farming that area with some trees made it so limited that farmland no longer cared to have that piece of property in the front. And that's how they arrived back at making it a regular open space with woods.
So perhaps I misunderstood the point of the motion, which seemed at the time to have been to garner deliberative response from the Board of Supervisor addressing that question so that that response could then affect the proposed plan that then you would come back and vote waivers on at that point.
What the plan, the recommendation was acted on as you heard from Mr. Majewski. Farmland preservation decided it wasn't worthwhile to maintain that as farmland, for lack of a better word. That's how we came back with more trees there. Okay. So it was acted on.
It was I mean, it's a much different looking plan than it was 2 months ago.
Yeah, by default, that going to the board to get their input isn't necessary since farmland
I
pulled out
understand it
from-
wasn't
Yeah.
necessary. I'm just trying to follow through on how this, or what the lifetime of that motion was and what the outcome was, because I didn't see any indication.
Well, there was a
of
direct,
any of
well, now
this.
you're seeing a direct consequence because they changed their plan as a result of it.
Right, and again, maybe I misunderstood. I expected part of that to be part of public record of things. The letter would have been public, the posted, the response would have been posted, and it sounds like there was no public deliberation by the Board of Supervisors for answering that, but it sounds like it was because the Farmland Preservation withdrew their consideration. Is that right?
Yes.
But there was no public documentation of that fact. Is that right?
I'm not sure. There may be, but I don't recall.
That documentation is just the public record of these meetings and the discussions.
And the discussions, which discussions?
These meeting minutes are, Colin, if I'm hearing you correctly, he's referencing that these meeting minutes are part of the public record.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Thank you, Dan.
Okay, good. So,
And look, the Board of Supervisors has a lot to deal with. They have 5 people dealing with every issue in the township. Us, the EAC, the Historical Commission, Farmland Preservation, we're all advisory boards to the supervisors. So by us answering that question and just the EAC looking at it before it goes to the supervisors, the EAC sort of worked out with Farmland Preservation that maybe there is a different direction we want to give these guys after looking at it more. And so in the name of the supervisor, because they're an advisory board, They came up with a new answer, and they're presenting a new solution to us. And that solution, when they presented it to us, when they did a presentation, we're all like, that's a really good change, and there wasn't a lot of debate that needed to happen about it. They addressed the stuff that we were talking about last meeting.
And that was for an eventuality that you hadn't considered when you made the motion before, is that right? I mean, you made the motion with the intent of one thing happening and something else happened, which is fine. It just, that's what I was trying to understand is where that went and how it showed up for public record. So it would.
This plan is public record.
Yeah. Good, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there further public? Yep, please.
Yep.
Alex Davidoff, 1233 Broward Estates Drive, one more time. Just wanted to clarify on the aspect of the right turnout. The 87 homeowners that are in unanimous opinion here that none of us want the cut through. We will fight very bitterly. We will take the matter up with PennDOT. We'll hire counsel. We'll do whatever is necessary to stop that. We would appreciate it if the Planning Commission would give a no vote, or at least a vote to just table this. We appreciate it also too if you guys would just take it off the table. We understand that you're going to vote on the other aspects. You know, you've heard our opinions, but.
And right now, it is off the table. If we address it.
Informally, just period. Like, just, I'd appreciate it if you guys could have a motion to just take the right turn off.
Okay.
Getting back to, you said you're speaking on behalf of 87 residents, and there was a petition.
Yes.
What does a petition say?
The petition says no opening of Surrey Lane, and in particular, there's concerns with the access to 332. I'll get the full text of the petition to you.
If I may?
Yeah.
Before it gets to the Board of Supervisors meeting, if you want to have a petition that calls out exactly the aspects that you're concerned with, if there are any additional to what you've mentioned, what it currently states, including the right out, if you want to add that, you could do that and give it to the board, or at least show up to the board meeting and be very clear about.
I think the petition we have covers that.
Okay.
But
I haven't seen it, but I just.
Yeah, well, happy to show it to you.
Yeah.
But we would appreciate it if you guys would put it to a vote to just table the right turnout. It's just something that none of the residents want, and also we do agree with your concerns that it's dangerous and otherwise just a really foolish addition to the development plan.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you would provide the petition too. I think you said you did provide it to Dan and/or Jim, if you just.
I think we've sent, I mean, it was a while ago. I think it was maybe a year ago.
I'll scan the whole thing and send it off.
Just recirculate.
Can I
Thank
send it to you guys? And
Yeah,
you can
just send it and we can forward it. And I'm almost positive if you did, we've sent it. There was a lot of it, so I apologize if we missed it.
Yeah, it was quite some time ago, early on.
Yeah, I understand. It's not a big deal. I'll send another copy to you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we're back to the motion. Is that it?
Thank you. I just want to point out, I'm about to lose video of the meeting, so if there is further public comment tonight, I'd ask Mr. Costello or Mr. Bush to run that, because I won't be able to see when people are approaching the microphone or not.
Okay.
Any comment online?
All right.
Okay. No further comment. Call a question for the acceptance of the motion as presented. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
With 3 voting aye, 1 abstention, the motion passes. Thank you very much. Adrian, did you want to make an additional motion?
Well, I'm still looking at. I'm not sure why I would even want to recommend to the supervisors to look at this. I'm hearing residents don't want it. I'm like, it just doesn't seem like that good of an idea. But if we want to recommend to the supervisors that there's an idea out there to put a right turn only connector exit out of the neighborhood, we can tell them to look at it. I'm not sure it's best use of our time.
Just
Whether
to
you
answer
make
that
a
for
motion
second,
or
I
not,
mean-
I'll commit that we're going to look at it and do it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Just to answer your question, Adrian, I understand there's a resident here who's representing some folks and saying he's against the idea. I mean, my general feeling in the last several meetings we had there was a lot of concern about residents of this new neighborhood transiting through Bridal Estates to exit. And I think what the developer has done here is to come forward with something that represents a reduction in those vehicles transiting through Bridal Estates. I mean no disrespect to the resident who's representing his neighbors. Those neighbors haven't seen this plan. They were here there was a lot more people here at a prior meeting. I think it would just be, we shouldn't accept necessarily that all 87 residents are opposed to a plan they haven't seen. But that said, whether we recommend that the town study it or not, it sounds like the developer's gonna try and advance something anyways.
That's fine. I'm not trying to belabor this. This is a separate thing. So if I can just say a motion we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that directs staff to look at the viability of a right-hand turn only idea that the developer has come up with.
I'll second the motion.
Any further commission comment on the motion? Any public comment on the motion? I can't see the room.
Please come to the mic. Sorry, I know I'm stepping in.
I know.
For public comment, please come to the microphone like before.
We just asked you guys to vote on the opposite. We don't want this. We made it very clear, all the residents don't want this. We will hire counsel if you guys go this route.
This is Dan Seekins, 1209 Bridal Estates Drive. I was one of the signatories of the original. I just wanted to say I view this right hand as, I appreciate they were trying, but I feel that this will turn into the very thing we were opposed to, which is a cut through. So I would not support going forward.
Steve Dillplain yet again. I'm a little concerned that this is just a red herring. Basically what we're saying is that in response to the residents not wanting a cut through, there's a proposal to do a reverse cut through. Doesn't make sense.
I don't hear a whole lot of pushback from the applicant on that particular, okay.
No further comment. I will call the question. All those in favor of the motion to recommend that the Board of Supervisors direct town staff to investigate the feasibility of the alternate plan indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
With three
The-
yes
so-
and one abstention.
Stay for the
Sorry.
sewer.
Sorry, Dan, what?
Yeah,
The planning modules, there's another item on the agenda.
yeah. We also have
Still here, right?
item number 4 on the agenda is the sewage facilities planning modules, component 4A, municipal planning agency review for the Wright Farm subdivision. As part of that, they have a form that is filled out by the township. Questions are, is there a municipal comprehensive plan? Yes. Is the proposal consistent with that plan? Yes. Is the proposal consistent with the use, development, and protection of water resources? Is yes. Is it consistent with the municipal land use plan relative to prime agricultural land preservation? The answer is yes. Does this project propose encroachments, obstructions, or dams that will affect wetlands? The answer is no. Will any known historical or archaeological resources be impacted by the project? That answer is no. Will any known endangered or threatened species of plant or animal be impacted by the project? The answer to that is no. Is there a municipal zoning ordinance? The answer is yes. Is this proposal consistent with that ordinance? The answer is yes. Does the proposal require a change or variance to an existing comprehensive plan or zoning ordinance? The answer is no. Have all applicable zoning approvals been obtained? I guess that would be, there are no zoning approvals necessary, so I guess that would be yes. Is there a municipal subdivision land development ordinance? The answer is yes. Is this proposal consistent with the ordinance? The answer is yes. Is the plan consistent with the municipal official sewage facilities plan? The answer is yes. Are there any wastewater disposal needs in the area adjacent to this proposal that should be considered by the municipality? The answer to that would be no. And has a waiver of the sewage facilities planning requirements been requested for the residual tract of this subdivision? There is no residual tract, so the answer to that is no. If you are amenable to that, you can make a motion to approve that, and we can have that signed. I know there was a lot to go through pretty quickly, but it's typically just the DEP wants to make sure that the township is aware of a development and the proposal for treatment of sewage and has a chance to weigh in on whether they believe it is consistent with the township ordinances and plans.
I guess a technical question, because the township, the sewage system that services the township is privately owned now, does Aqua, as the owner, have to chime in on this at all, or is that purely a municipality's opinion on the matter, I guess, on those items?
After the Board of Supervisors, this will go to Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority for review and approval, or, I'm sorry, after the Planning Commission, it'll go to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority for review and signature, and then to Aqua for review and signature as well, before it goes to Philadelphia Water Department for review and signature. And then after all of those agencies have reviewed, then it will come to the Board of Supervisors for review and signature.
Does that have to, again, maybe this is for you, does that have to occur at the same time that we consider the site plan? Or is that
does
could
not.
come later? Okay. I'm just looking at potential schedule for future items. Okay.
Yeah, so this is just one component of the, that's why they call it component 4A. There are a number of components, obviously.
So this sounds like, Jim, it sounds like you're satisfied that all the requirements are acceptable for the township.
Correct. Yeah, the only time the answers would be atypical is if they needed a zoning change, if they receive variances, then you'd say yes, and you'd list that they receive variances, stuff like that.
Okay, thanks.
Does RBE have any comment?
No, we do not.
Okay, do we want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we recommend approval of the sewage facilities planning module component 4A for the Wright Farm subdivision.
Second.
I'll second the motion. Okay. Any further comment by the commission? Any public comment? Reminder, I can't see the room.
There is no public comment.
Thank you very much. Okay, with that, I will call the question. All those in favor of approving, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
3 ayes, 1 abstention. The motion passes. Thank you very much. I believe that's the last item on the agenda. Is that correct?
The last item is adjournment.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Seconded.
We shouldn't.
All right, all those in favor?
But,
Aye.
Aye.
yeah.